class, welcome to the first slide audio presentation for LP3 number 1. This will cover Chapter 7, the topics of which are social, mobile, and local marketing. But before we get into that, let's take a quick look at the first half of our LP3 seminar assessment. And so what I want you to do is imagine that you're applying for a job and that the interviewer asks you two questions. What do you believe are the necessary skills for this position? And would you please describe the various steps in setting up a social marketing program? I've given you a hint to number 2 question and take a look at page 424. Now you folks have a propensity to sort of just copy stuff from different locations, which is fine, but I know what pages 424 to 426 say, and so when you talk about those various steps, try to give anecdotal information. It makes it a lot more interesting, not just to read, but then, in my view, as an instructor, you connect the dots, just what the definition of a particular term or process is and how you actually view it in the marketplace. The other tack that you can take on this assignment is to imagine that if you're not rather than interviewing for a job, your present supervisor is interested in setting up a social marketing program, maybe interested in you, or maybe just seeking your advice because you finished this class and they're trying to tap into what you know about it, but they're asking you in a similar context, what kind of skills do I need of somebody that I would hire if we as a firm were going to establish such a program. And talk to me about what the various steps are in constructing or creating such a social marketing effort. And the really neat thing about social, mobile, and local marketing as compared to the more traditional methods that were used years ago is this ability to establish conversations or engage people in conversations around your brand or the utility of certain products or services. It's reflected in a lot of different ways with the various sites. At Facebook, it's and in Twitter, it's sort of how many followers you have when you around your opinions, how many actually read them, respond to them. And then the ability to sort of tie all these together in an integrated marketing communications effort. It's a very strong, dynamic media. And again, it's very different than traditional methods, say 10, certainly 15 years ago, where the tactic was to get as many messages in front of as many people as possible in hope they had a decent response. But in social marketing, as you know, the tactic is to get targeted messages in front of existing customers and their friends around whom they may be influential, or to get it based on analysis of the conversations that are going on within these various venues like Tumblr, Facebook, Pinterest, Twitter, whatever, to try to determine who within those frameworks might be potential customers and get your messages in front of them as well. Again, I just mentioned some of the more, the larger ones. These that you see account for 90% of all the social networking, at least within this country. And like Facebook has a worldwide presence, but there are other social networks in other countries like China and South America that rival actually some of the names that we're more familiar with. So there are 5 steps in the social marketing marketing process. I mentioned this is refers back to page 424 that I noted in the first half of our assessment assignment. And these steps are appropriate, germane to all the different social sites that we just talked about, like Tumblr, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, LinkedIn, etc., Facebook. And so the first thing that you want to do is you want to have promotional efforts either within those venues or external to these venues. So you could be trying, in other words, to direct people through traditional media to your Facebook site. And you see that in ads by major corporations, not just in TV, so on and so forth. Visit us in Facebook, visit us in Twitter, and see what we're saying. And so the first step is this kind of holistic effort to acquire through as many media as possible fan acquisition, and then to engage them in conversations that they might have an interest in. A really good example of this one, actually, early on in the development of the internet was Eminem. And Eminem set up a site, and of course, M&M chocolates have a strong following. Most people, many people, if not most people, have tried them, certainly, but they have a very loyal following. And they, over the years, have engaged those loyal followers in a number of different corporate issues, like selecting the next color. They have games for children online, all sorts of things. So you want to engage them. And then you, in the case of like Twitter in particular and Facebook, you want to amplify that interest. In other words, you want to get them engaged with other people, either their friends or their acquaintances on that site. So their friends maybe that they've never met, but acquaintances through these common interest in these activities. And so you're hoping they'll pull people in or they get engaged in other groups so that you can develop within these groups communities. So I think the book talked about Facebook. The average Facebook follower has 120 friends. So you'd say within that group of 120, there may be 2 or 3 different communities. It may be part of one big community, or it may be a group of 20 or 30 who really are the focal point of the conversations around whatever it is they're talking about, hobbies, brands, whatever. And once you've identified those communities from a marketing standpoint, which you can do based on the analysis of the communications that are occurring, you can again target to individuals that you believe might have a specific interest. One of the things that was obvious from if you read the text is getting a potential target market individual is really quite expensive. And that makes sense because they've analyzed this data and they can predict with a high degree of accuracy who in fact is going to be interested in your product, which is one of the things you want to explain to as a benefit to either your boss or an interviewer for a job. What is an outcome that's a benefit in all cases? If you're a company, what you're trying to do is to build a broader customer base, identify with great accuracy a target market, and to build and brand strength. Now, I always like to say, if you can't, to quote Michael Porter and say, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And so it's really important to understand the metrics that exist for all of these different social sites. They're fundamentally the same. You can measure fan acquisition. They know how many people are on Facebook and how many people are in different groups. Same for Twitter. You can measure it. It's not called likes or dislikes, say. It's more about how many people follow your tweets. So these people that are popular and lots of people follow their tweets have a large degree of influence, which can be measured. Amplification is essentially reach. In your community, one of the metrics you'd be interested in a community, what is your level of accuracy and efficacy in getting people to respond to the targeted messages that you send to them? There are some wonderful YouTube videos on all of these different social sites that discuss the analytical tools that they use, that they make available to companies, both companies that are interested in brand building, but also companies that are interested in analyzing this data that they in turn sell to companies that are interested in brand building. Now, I've watched these. This is a great series of 6 short videos. They're all 5-6 minutes, and kind of condensed versions of a 6-day class actually around social marketing. And coincidentally, what I like about it is it follows the text really nicely in the companies that it profiles. So the first day one is sort of an opening on the value of social marketing and to businesses. Day 2 is Facebook. I forget what day 3 is. Our Twitter is highlighted. Pinterest is highlighted. So it's really they're each 4 or 5 minutes. So it's 25 to 30 minutes total of videos. Complements your readings really, really well. So I encourage you to watch them. The downside, of course, of social marketing is giving up this information about yourself, and that's one thing. And there's a positive side of it. It's showing up in your discussion threads. This target marketing that they have these various tools that watch what you're interested in on the web, or actually listens to what you're saying in the conversations. Listen being used in sort of an abstract sense. But as a consequence of your activities on the web of all natures, you're showing things that you have interest in. And the downside of that is you're only showing things that you have interest in. That's one downside. Another, so you don't necessarily see things that you're aware of that you might have an interest in. In terms of using the internet to gather information about different things, again, it's going to tell you what you want to hear. And so if you're looking for different opinions on different things like political issues, you actually have to use a little bit of concentration and self-control and look for other sources of other opinions to make sure you're getting all the information that's germane to what you're interested in, even if it's buying things. The other thing is you give up a lot of private information about yourself. So mobile marketing obviously is really the future. I was amazed when I saw this figure: 250 million Americans using mobile devices, and there's 315 million people in the country, which means lots and lots of kids that this is true. And so it's really the next frontier for marketers in how and to whom they're going to be sending the majority of their messages. Certainly the iPhone, that's the name we use for that particular product. It's not really a phone in that sense. It's more of a communication entertainment device, and this tends to support that concept that people use their cell phones or their mobile devices. It could be a pad like an iPad or something, some equivalent, but 52% of them use it for entertainment. And so the phone, the ability to communicate is just one item anymore. Local-based marketing is really the wave of the future. The ability to pinpoint people and to this is done two ways. They can track when you're online searching. They'll know the area that you're living in, where your IP address is, so they can send you messages of local things going on, or if it's your mobile device, they can actually track you with GPS. Here are two related videos on the matter that you might want to watch that give a little more specifics around how to use mobile apps and hardware in your marketing efforts.